Why don't you just disappear? My stepdaughter snapped. Then I uncovered my ex's dangerous scheme. Why don't you just disappear forever? Those 7 devastating words from my stepdaughter shattered my world, but they weren't really her words. Behind our family's sudden collapse lurked a dangerous manipulation that would put us all at risk. What happens when the person who should protect his daughter becomes her greatest threat? Stay until the end to discover how we exposed a chilling betrayal and learned that true family isn't defined by blood, but by who remains when everyone else walks away. Why don't you just disappear forever? My stepdaughter's words cut through me like a knife, but it was my wife joining in that shattered my heart completely. We'd be better off without you. I didn't argue or yell. I simply packed my bags and left. That's when things took an unexpected turn that none of us saw coming. It wasn't obvious at first, just an odd emptiness in our living room that I couldn't immediately place. But as I set down my laptop bag after a long Tuesday at work, it hit me. I had been systematically removed from 4 years of family memories. The large canvas from our trip to Yellowstone last summer still hung above the fireplace, but where I once stood with my arm around Maddie, there was now just an awkward empty space beside her and Elaine. Every framed photo on our mantel had been digitally edited, leaving strange gaps like missing teeth in a smile. 4 years of carefully built memories, gone. My coffee mug felt suddenly heavy in my hand as I heard Maddie's bedroom door open upstairs. My stepdaughter's footsteps paused at the top of the stairs when she noticed me standing there. I could feel her hesitation, the deliberate silence as she decided whether to acknowledge me. After what felt like forever, she continued down, phone clutched in her hand, deliberately avoiding eye contact as she headed for the kitchen. "Hey, Maddie," I said, keeping my voice neutral despite the knot forming in my stomach. "How was school today?" The silence that followed was deafening. She grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl, still not looking at me. Things had been tense lately, but this felt different, calculated, intentional. 4 years. That's how long I'd been in Maddie's life. 4 years of helping with calculus homework she struggled with. 4 years of cheering at her volleyball games when her biological father never showed. 4 years of carefully building trust, of movie nights and inside jokes about terrible sci-fi films we both secretly loved. The tension had started last week when I offered to help with her biology project. She'd snapped at me with unexpected venom. "Stop pretending you care about my grades. You're not my real dad." I'd heard variations before, but this time her voice carried something new, a sharp edge of deliberate cruelty. Elaine had been in the kitchen and must have heard everything. Her silence felt like choosing sides. The Cold War escalated over days, or doors closing just hard enough to make a point. Conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered rooms, dishes left in the sink with pointed looks. But tonight, everything exploded. Maddie was texting during dinner, breaking our no-phones rule. When I gently reminded her, she threw her phone down with such force the screen cracked. "God, why are you always policing everything I do?" she shouted. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" "Maddie, I'm just trying to." "To what? Play dad? I already have one." She pushed her chair back, the legs screeching against the hardwood. "Why don't you just disappear forever? Nobody asked you to try so hard." It's pathetic. I looked at Elaine, expecting. I don't know what I expected. Support? Mediation? Instead, she set down her fork and said quietly, "Maybe we'd all be better off if you did." The words hung in the air like smoke. Right at that moment, with those crushing words still echoing in our kitchen, something inside me went strangely calm. I looked at their faces, Maddie's angry defiance, Elaine's cold resignation, and simply nodded. "Okay," I said quietly, pushing back from the table. "If that's how you both feel, okay." "Okay what?" Maddie challenged, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe, or fear that she'd finally pushed too far. I didn't answer. I just walked upstairs to our bedroom, and pulled out my old duffel bag from the closet. I could hear them whispering downstairs as I methodically packed enough clothes for a few days. What struck me most was how steady my hands were. No trembling, no hesitation, just mechanical movement as I gathered what I needed. When I came back downstairs, Maddie had disappeared into her room. Elaine stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed defensively over her chest. "So you're just leaving? That's your solution?" Her voice wavered between accusation and panic. "You said you'd be better off," I replied, checking for my wallet and keys. "I'm respecting that." "That's not I didn't mean." She stopped, pride or anger, holding back whatever she was going to say. I picked up my bag. "I'll be at Mark's. I'll figure out something more permanent soon. I paused at the door, looking back at the woman I'd loved for 5 years. You know, when Maddie said those things before, it hurt, but I understood. Teenage anger, confusion about loyalty. But hearing you agree, Elaine? That broke something I'm not sure can be fixed. I slept at Mark's apartment that night. He took one look at my face and set up his guest room without questions. That's the kind of friend he is. I swallowed a sleeping pill from my emergency travel kit and turned off my phone. The silence was both a relief and deafening. The next morning, sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains woke me. When I finally turned on my phone, it exploded with notifications. 17 missed calls, 9 from Elaine, 3 from Maddie, 5 from my sister Olivia, 29 text messages, 5 voicemails. I wasn't ready to listen to any of them, but one text notification caught my eye and made my blood run cold. Nathan. The name alone sent a wave of nausea through me. Nathan was Maddie's biological father. The same Nathan who hadn't paid child support in 4 years. The same Nathan who'd missed Maddie's last 3 birthdays and her middle school graduation. The text was from Olivia. Call me as soon as possible. Nathan's back in Portland. Saw him with Maddie at Pioneer Square yesterday. Suddenly, the timing of everything made awful sense. I scrolled through the messages from Elaine again. The most recent simply read, "There's something you need to know. It's about Maddie and Nathan. Please call me." I sat on the edge of Mark's guest bed, staring at my phone as the pieces started falling into place. The photos, the sudden hostility, the calculated cruelty, it all had Nathan's fingerprints all over it. My sister called while I was still processing. "Jack?" Olivia's voice was tight with worry. "Are you okay? Elaine called me frantic last night saying you left. What happened?" "Nathan happened," I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. "He's back, isn't he? And he's poisoning everything." The ice cream shop's neon sign flickered as I sat waiting, wondering if this was just another cruel joke. Midnight in Portland, and I'd found myself at Sweet Dreams Ice Cream, the place where Maddie and I had shared so many conversations over the past 4 years. Her text had come through at 11:23 p.m. "I know I ruined everything, but can we talk? Just us? I'm at our place." I almost didn't come. After everything I'd learned today, the betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. My meeting with Mrs. Bennett, Maddie's guidance counselor, had been devastating. "Jack, I'm concerned. Maddie submitted paperwork yesterday to drop all her honors classes. She's also resigning from debate team and student council." When I asked why, the answer knocked the wind from me. She mentioned relocating to Seattle next semester. Something about her father's tech startup needing family investors. A classic Nathan move. He'd pulled similar schemes before convincing Elaine to invest $12,000 in a guaranteed food truck franchise 3 years ago. Money we never saw again. Money from Maddie's college fund. The bell above the shop door jingled, pulling me from my thoughts. Maddie stood in the entrance, looking impossibly young in her oversized Portland State sweatshirt. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. She hesitated before sliding into the booth across from me. "You came," she whispered, not meeting my eyes. I did. I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was hammering in my chest. Mr. Franco, the owner who'd stayed open late just for us, set 2 bowls on our table without asking. Mint chocolate chip for me, strawberry cheesecake for Maddie. Our usuals. He gave me a sympathetic nod before retreating to the back. "I don't know where to start," Maddie said, staring at her ice cream as it slowly melted. "How about with Nathan?" I watched her flinch at his name. "How long has he been back in contact with you?" 3 months, she admitted. "He found me on Instagram. Said he wanted to make things right." She finally looked up, tears brimming. "He said he was sorry. That he had a real job now. A tech startup in Seattle that's going to be huge," he said. She trailed off. "He said what?" "Maddie?" "He said the reason he stayed away was because of you." Her voice cracked. "That you pushed him out, made Mom choose. He said if I really wanted him in my life, I had to prove it by showing him I was choosing him over you." The pieces clicked into place. The photos, the cruel words, the calculated rejection, all Nathan's orchestration. "And you believed him?" "It wasn't a question. I wanted to," she admitted, a tear sliding down her cheek. "But then," she pulled out her phone, sliding it across the table. "He wants me to get my friends' parents to invest. He says they'll make enough to pay for any college they want. But look at the messages, Jack. The way he talks about them, like they're just walking wallets. I scrolled through the texts, feeling sick. They weren't just unethical, they were illegal. Clear evidence of investment fraud, targeting minors and their families. Maddie, this isn't just wrong. What he's doing is criminal. I looked up from the phone to find her watching me intently. I know, she whispered. I think I've always known. Deep down. She swallowed hard. The thing is, I didn't delete those photos of you. Mom and I had a huge fight about it when I admitted what Nathan asked me to do. Another tear fell. Jack, I'm so sorry. I said those horrible things because I thought I had to choose. I didn't think you'd actually leave. The truth hung between us like a fragile bridge. What Nathan didn't know was that he dramatically underestimated the bond 4 years of genuine care had built. We need to talk to your mom, I said finally. And then, Maddie, I think it's time your father learned about consequences. I've never been part of a sting operation before, but watching federal agents wire my 16-year-old stepdaughter made everything terrifyingly real. 2 days had passed since our midnight ice cream shop conversation, and what began as family drama had escalated into something far more serious. After showing Nathan's messages to Mark, whose brother worked for the SEC, things moved with surprising speed. The evidence was damning clear patterns of investment fraud, targeting families through their children. Is it too tight? Agent Ramirez asked gently as she adjusted the small microphone hidden beneath Maddie's sweater. No, it's fine, Maddie replied, but her trembling hands betrayed her nerves. Her eyes met mine across the hotel room that served as our impromptu operation headquarters. What if he suspects something? Then you walk away immediately, I said firmly. Your safety comes first. Everything else is secondary. Agent Ramirez nodded in agreement. The moment you feel uncomfortable, use the phrase we discussed. We'll intervene immediately. Elaine sat silently in the corner, her face a mask of guilt and determination. Our reconciliation had been tentative wounds still fresh from that awful night. But we were united in protecting Maddie. When she'd heard the full story of Nathan's manipulation, her anger had been terrible to witness. He used our daughter as bait, she'd whispered, voice shaking with rage. He told her to destroy our family so he could steal her college fund. The plan was deceptively simple. Nathan had arranged a family investment dinner at Portofino, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. He'd invited 2 of Maddie's friends and their parents' potential marks for his scheme. What he didn't know was that those parents were now cooperating with investigators, wearing wires of their own. Remember, Agent Ramirez said, checking Maddie's equipment one last time, we need him to explicitly solicit investments or make false promises about returns. The more specific, the better. Maddie nodded, taking a deep breath. I know what to do. I drove her to the restaurant, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. You don't have to go through with this, I said as we parked. We can find another way. She turned to me, a new resolve in her eyes. Yes, I do. He doesn't get to use me to hurt more families. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. Elaine and I sat in a surveillance van with the agents, listening as Nathan charmed the table with promises of guaranteed returns and ground floor opportunities. His voice smooth and confident made my skin crawl. The tech sector in Seattle is exploding, he told them. Our proprietary algorithm is already attracting serious venture capital interest. It was all lies. The background check had revealed no registered business, no Seattle office. Nothing but a trail of complaints across 3 states. The breaking point came when Nathan slid investment paperwork across the table to Maddie. Just sign here, sweetie. Your college fund will triple in 18 months, guaranteed. When Maddie hesitated, Nathan's voice took on a harder edge. What's wrong? Don't you trust your father? Actually, she replied, her voice remarkably steady. I've been thinking about that. About trust. The tension was palpable even through audio. Nathan's tone shifted subtly. We can discuss this later, in private. No, I think we should discuss it now. Maddie's voice grew stronger. Like how you told me to delete all the photos of Jack from our house. Or how you said Mom and I would be better off if he disappeared. Maddie. Nathan warned, but it was too late. Agent Ramirez gave the signal. Move in now. The chaos that followed played out in fragments of sound chairs scraping, confused voices, Nathan's suddenly panicked protests. Then came the moment that would stay with me forever. Tell them I'm your father. Nathan pleaded as agents led him away. Maddie, tell them. There was a pause, and then Maddie's clear voice. My father's right here, and he just watched you get exactly what you deserve. When we finally emerged from the van, Maddie ran straight into my arms, sobbing with relief. Over her shoulder, I watched Nathan being loaded into a police car, his empire of lies collapsing around him. He'd wanted me to disappear, but instead, he was the one vanishing straight to federal custody. The storage unit Nathan rented contained boxes from 7 different families, all victims of the same calculated scheme. 2 weeks had passed since his arrest, and the full scope of his fraud was still unfolding like a nightmare with no end. Agent Ramirez had called us that morning, asking if we wanted to see what they'd discovered during their investigation. I wasn't sure it was a good idea, but Maddie insisted. "I need to see," she'd said, her voice steady with a new kind of maturity. "I need to understand what he really is." Standing in that climate-controlled storage space, surrounded by the evidence of so many shattered dreams, I watched my stepdaughter's face as she processed the reality of her biological father's crimes. Each box contained meticulous records, photos of families, financial documents, personal information, and detailed notes on how to manipulate each victim. He had a system, Agent Ramirez explained gently. He targeted blended families, specifically those with teenage children from previous relationships. The kids were his way in. Maddie picked up a notebook labeled Portland Marks and flipped it open. Her hands trembled as she read Nathan's clinical assessment of our family. Ex-bitter about divorce, daughter seeking validation, stepfather trying too hard, easily isolated. "He had me profiled," she whispered, shutting the notebook with a snap. He knew exactly which buttons to push. The investigation revealed Nathan had conducted similar scams across 5 states, stealing over $3.2 million from families like ours. What made it worse was discovering this wasn't his first time disappearing from Maddie's life to run cons elsewhere. The pattern stretched back years, reappearing just long enough to exploit, then vanishing again. That night, back home, where I'd cautiously moved back, and Maddie sat at the kitchen table surrounded by college brochures. "Stanford is still my first choice," she said, looking up as I set a mug of hot chocolate beside her. "I called Mrs. Bennett yesterday. She said I can get back into my AP classes if I do some makeup work over spring break." "That's great," I replied, feeling a surge of pride at her resilience. "I know you can catch up." Elaine joined us, placing a hand on my shoulder, a small gesture of reconnection. We were slowly rebuilding. "The support group meets tomorrow," she said. 3 more families have joined. In the aftermath of Nathan's arrest, Elaine had organized a support network for victims of similar scams. Healing through helping others, it was so like her. "I finished my victim impact statement," Maddie said suddenly. She'd been working on it for days, preparing for Nathan's sentencing hearing. Would you read it, Jack? Tell me if it's okay?" I felt something catch in my throat as she slid the notebook across the table. This teenager who told me to disappear forever was now trusting me with her most vulnerable thoughts. "I'd be honored," I managed to say. Later, after Elaine had gone to bed, I sat alone reading Maddie's powerful words. The statement was raw, honest, and far more forgiving than Nathan deserved. But one paragraph near the end made tears well in my eyes. "The worst thing my biological father did wasn't stealing money. It was trying to steal my family, the real one, the one that stayed even when I pushed them away. He tried to convince me that family is about blood, but I've learned it's actually about who remains standing beside you when the world falls apart." The next morning, Maddie came downstairs early. I was already at the kitchen table, reviewing some work emails. She hesitated in the doorway, then approached with an envelope in her hand. "I found this in my desk drawer," she said, sliding it across to me. "Nathan asked me to mail it weeks ago. It's investment paperwork for 2 more families at school." I thought maybe the FBI might need it. I looked at the envelope, then back at her face, determined, a little sad, but no longer confused about where her loyalties should lie. "Want to deliver it to Agent Ramirez together?" I asked. The smile she gave me, then genuine, unguarded, was worth every moment of pain we'd endured. "Can we get ice cream after?" she asked, and for the first time in weeks, I laughed. The adoption papers sat on our kitchen table, Maddie's handwriting on the sticky note unmistakable. Make it official? 3 months had passed since Nathan's arrest, and the healing process had been both painful and beautiful. I stared at the documents, emotion rising in my throat as I traced my fingers over the words that would legally make Maddie my daughter, something she'd been in my heart for years. Nathan's sentencing last week had brought a formal end to his chapter in our lives. 18 years in federal prison, with orders to repay $3.2 million to his victims. As the judge read the verdict, I watched Maddie's shoulders straighten, as if a weight was finally lifting. Her victim impact statement had been powerful so much so that 3 other families approached her afterward, thanking her for giving words to their own experiences. "What are you thinking about?" Elaine asked, wrapping her arms around me from behind as I continued to stare at the adoption papers. "About how close we came to losing everything," I admitted. "About how one dinner nearly destroyed what we spent years building." The family therapy sessions we'd been attending weekly had taught us to speak these truths aloud instead of letting them fester. Dr. Winters had helped us understand how Nathan had exploited the natural fault lines in our blended family lines that existed in all families, but which he had deliberately widened. "Mom, Jack, come here." Maddie's excited voice called from the living room, breaking our moment. We found her kneeling by the fireplace, hanging a newly framed photo of the 3 of us at her debate team championship last month. She'd replaced all the altered photos with new ones, creating a visual record of our rebuilt family. "I have something else to show you," she said, reaching for her laptop. "It's for my senior project. Miss Bennett helped me set it up." On the screen was a simple website titled, "Recognizing Manipulation, a Teen's Guide to Protecting Your Family." Maddie had created a resource for other teenagers with absent or manipulative parents, turning her painful experience into something that could help others. "It's amazing," I said, genuinely impressed by her resilience. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, and then, with characteristic teenage awkwardness added, "So, did you see the papers?" "I did," I answered, emotion making my voice rough. "Are you sure?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything," she said simply. Later that evening, as we sat down to our typical Tuesday family dinner, Elaine's lasagna, Maddie's excessive garlic bread, my admittedly mediocre salad, I looked around at this imperfect, healing family of mine and felt a profound gratitude. "Real family isn't about whose blood runs through your veins," I said, raising my water glass in an impromptu toast. "It's about who stays when everyone else walks away." Maddie smiled, adding her own glass to the toast. "And sometimes the best revenge isn't watching someone pay for their mistakes, it's building something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those who should love us most." But as our family discovered, true strength isn't avoiding pain, it's facing manipulation head-on and rebuilding what was nearly destroyed. Nathan wanted me to disappear, but instead, he's the one who vanished into a prison cell where he can't hurt anyone else. Real family isn't defined by DNA. It's written in the everyday choices to stay, to fight, and to protect. If our story touched you, please hit like and share your own family triumph in the comments. Subscribe for more powerful true stories of resilience, betrayal, and the unexpected heroes who emerge when everything falls apart. New emotional journeys posted every Wednesday.